Hey, and welcome back for another episode of SHOWOFF CI/CD Pipeline. Today I'm here with Ross. Ross, great to have you on the show.
Hey, I'm excited to be here and show off pipeline I've been working on and maybe use it as some potential to get some ideas and going forward.
Yeah, and Ross is another community builder, so I'm really glad that the builders in the program support me that well. Ross, how long have you been with the program?
I'm in my third year, so doing the renewal for the fourth. I've been the cloud operations cohort or subgroup of people there, and that's kind of where I reside from a technical competency standpoint.
Cool, and that's also what you do in real life then, cloud operations?
Yeah, yep, yeah. So I'm a manager of cloud services and enablement, and that's just a fancy way of saying I'm a cloud architect and site reliability engineer at the management and governance level. I don't really work on workloads, just providing secure AWS accounts and organizations for development teams to put their resources into.
Cool. So you're kind of in a central team that works for other teams, is what I'm hearing.
Yep. Yeah, our team provides the environments for development and engineering.
Cool. And you also have CI/CD pipelines for provisioning those accounts, I would guess.
Yeah, we're using Account Factory for Terraform and also customizations for Control Tower. So we use Account Factory Terraform to deploy the accounts into the appropriate go use and apply policies and additional resources at launch.
Cool. That's not what I usually deal with. So eager to learn something for you there as well. But I think that that's not what we're going to talk about today, right?
Right.
So what are we going to talk about?
So my pipeline that I've used and it's evolved over time is really to deploy canned resources or staged resources into any number of accounts. It can be just one account. It can be multiple accounts within an organization, or it can be configured to go into every account in an organization. And that can even go one step further if you have multiple organizations, which I've operated in. With the automation, you can deploy a single resource, Cloudformation or Terraform, to all accounts across multiple organizations using Cloudformation stacks and stack sets. So my pipeline is basically designed for reusability, reliability, and scalability, where I want the static code analysis checks to be the same on a single template and validate that it's deployed identically to every account, no matter how many.
Cool. This sounds like you're following some of the DevSecOps principles that we read about in the industry, right?
Yeah, exactly. So again, we're only deploying resources via Cloudformation or Terraform, but the pipeline can be modified to actually implement ECR, ECS, or static web pages, a static web app behind CloudFront and S3. Anything you want to do, it can be modified. But what I'm going to show today is just the deployment of Cloudformation templates. So where that comes in handy is if you've got a SSM run doc that you want to put in every single account so your developers can do something as easily as enabling EBS, encryption by default on all accounts, or run scans, patch management. That resource is in every account and it's deployed identically for the developer.
Cool. And that pipeline is built with?
I'm using Gitlab CI for this specific deployment.
Cool. Then let's directly jump into it, right? So let's look at what you have and let's share as much details as possible. Feel free to go ahead.
All right. So I'll share my window here, make sure you can see that.
I can.
All right. Perfect. Okay, so there's one prerequisite for this pipeline, and I have one that works Cloudformation and a separate one that works Terraform. Depending on time, we'll just look at Cloudformation. But the prerequisite in order to get access into any of the AWS accounts is a GitLab OIDC, Open Identity Connector, role and IDP pair, which I have a project out here that is pre-deployed in all of my accounts. So it just deploys a role, OIDC, IDP, and that allows my pipeline to have permissions into the environment. So my Cloudformation pipeline, the idea is I want to have a demo project. So I have a demo project here for Cloudformation, which we'll deploy. It's completely empty. There's nothing in it. And I'm going to run this pipeline against it. It's a remote pipeline. So I don't have to cut and paste and include all these directories and files in my project. I just reference this pipeline in my source project, and it runs everything from a remote CI. So,
but this is sorry for a stupid question, but this is a GitLab functionality, right?
Yes, so you can do local and remote CI. So you can reference a project within your current group workers or structure or somebody else's project.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, you bet. So I have some examples of what that looks like in the project itself. So it's very simple. Include this review basically does just static code analysis. So it does things like check off by bridge crew, CFN neg. You can add other tools such as GitHub superlinter, anything into the project if you want. But that's what this review does. So this is what the GitLab CI file would look like in my project to do just review. And then I have deliver, which basically says put my CloudFormation templates in a bucket accessible to all accounts in an organization. And then the deploy functionality basically says after the bucket or after the templates deployed to a bucket, actually create a CloudFormation stat change set and deploy that change set in any account which has an extends job in the project. So I have this demo project here ready to push some code to, so I'm going to do that right now. And that allows us to see the pipeline run prior to a merge request. So there is some static code analysis that goes on at first. And then once it's merged to main,
are you sharing something else in your browser?
I'm not sharing it yet. So I just pushed a branch here. So here's a merge request. So that branch is already running a CI on it. And in that is CFN neg and checkoff. And it's running in this demo project from my CI pipeline. So it's running jobs that are right here in this static code analysis folder. So the CFN neg, it pulls down a former colleague of mine's image that has CFN neg and other security tools in it. And then checkoff uses the bridge crew Docker image with these parameters. So this is statically configured. Every project will use those exact configurations by using this pipeline. So that passed, and for purposes of this demo, I didn't put any issues into my templates to show the error, but we'll create that merge request and merge it. And then we can watch that pipeline as well and see the output. So for instance, for checkoff or for CFN neg, my template looked good. There were no CFN neg issues. For checkoff, you can see it passed. It looks at all the resources and the individual checks. So if any one of these, like my template is just going to deploy a simple S3 bucket. So if I didn't have any of these configured in the CloudFormation template to ensure server-side encryption on the bucket, public access, things like that, these would have failed the job, and then I wouldn't have been able to merge. So the pipeline for merge.
Just a question. Why? So this is now pipeline that is being executed on GitLab.
Yes.
These are tools where I've also seen people executing them as pre-commit hooks. You are not using pre-commit hooks, right?
No, not in this configuration. There is definitely, that's one of the things this could definitely involve too, but this is just very, very basic configuration.
Yep. Thanks.
Yep, you bet. So the feature branch checks passed, which now allow me to run the merge pipeline, and so it rechecks just to make sure nothing changed on the files. And again, the scalability of this is crucial because I can add or remove at any given time or create additional templates that have other jobs in this. So while this is running, we can go back and look at the actual template files that say for the deploy, I'm referencing checkoff, CFN neg, and then I have some CI scripts that actually do AWS CLI operations. I can add or remove or create other template files to import or reference into my project to do even more. If I want to copy an entire directory to S3, or I want to push a Docker image to ECR, I can do that, and I can add that to an existing stage, or I can add additional stages and do that. So it's all referenced right here. So for instance, the stage stage of the CloudFormation deployment, it authenticates to AWS with STS. It grabs the template out of the bucket that I deploy it to, and it makes sure a stack doesn't already exist, and then it creates a change set if a change set didn't already exist. If it already existed with that name in it, it deletes it because it assumes that what's coming in is going to be the most relevant and newest configuration. So
and that means for you that the infrastructure as code that you have is going to be CloudFormation for this example, but we could potentially also do that with Terraform, with CDK or something else, right?
Yep, if we get to it, we probably won't have time. I have the exact same configuration for Terraform where the CI jobs do build, apply, destroy format. So those will deploy right into the environment as well.
Awesome.
Yep. So while this pipeline's running, again, the delivery stage basically says, put whatever templates are in my CloudFormation directory in my project into a bucket. This bucket here happens to be accessible to all accounts within my organization. And then it created that change set. So if we go to one of my accounts that I have open here, so blue is my training account, purple is my development account. Oh, sorry, I might have lied there. There we go. So there, it's sitting in review process right now. This demo CIS3 bucket. So this is in my, forget what account I'm actually in. This is in my development account. So once I say in my pipeline now, if I can find it. Here we go. So it's sitting there, wait, I want to deploy that bucket. This is a manual deployment in my pipeline, just so I'm not making changes live, but that could be automatic. It could have already deployed by now. So that sends a signal to AWS to finish that change set and actually deploy that bucket. So while we're waiting on that, I'll just get.
Could you just elaborate on that review in progress functionality? I need to admit I've never seen it yet. This is a CloudFormation functionality?
Yeah, so basically what a change set is, you can create a change set on a resource that doesn't exist. And what it'll do is it'll show you, it'll leave it in that review state. So the change set is actually right here. So it gives you a unique change set ID, and you can review it, what the resources are going to be deployed, what the inputs are, what the template actually looks like. And then if you confirm that, you can either confirm that via the console or the CLI, it will actually move into a create status.
Okay.
So then any future updates to it, you would just like running a drift, not a drift, but a diff essentially on your CloudFormation template before you run it. So so that bucket is now completed. If I refresh my bucket here, there it is. So I got my demo AWS Community Builders CloudFormation bucket. So I just deployed the resource directly into the environment from my pipeline. And it ran all those static code analysis checks on it from the beginning. So in my project, if I go back to my pipeline, you can see in my CI is what I showed earlier. It's just, so I'm referencing my CloudFormation pipeline, the main branch of it. I have this version, so version 1 is as it runs right now, but I reference main. So this is always what's live on the main branch for changes. And I'm referencing this deploy file. So it says it's going to run all of these different stage jobs across these different stages. And then I pass it in particular parameters. So I want the CloudFormation template to go to this bucket that's accessible to all accounts. The bucket is in this region. That's important for the CLI to make sure it goes to the right location. The delivery path can be anything. So it's bucket with a prefix of this project's name. So if I go back to this project, or if I go to my demo bucket, sorry, this is in a different account. This directory wasn't here prior. I should have showed that, but it was deployed here at March 10th at 9:18 this morning. So it deployed to that bucket with the project's name as a prefix. And then since we're doing the actual deployment, these are variables that pass into the CLI running in those jobs. So we're going to deploy the resource in US East 2. If I wanted the bucket to be in West 2, I would have modified that here. This is the stack name that you see in the account. So that's this right here. And then this is the particular template that I want to deploy, and that can be anything in the directory within the project. So it's in my CloudFormation configuration. So the job's broken down, delivers to the bucket that's accessible to everybody, stages the stack change set, and then it deploys it. So in this situation, if you want to actually deploy that to 2 accounts at once, I would just uncomment these. So I can just modify this real quick.
Okay.
Now the dilemma with this is bucket names are static or they're unique, so you can't have 2 buckets with the exact same name. So I also have the ability to pass in unique parameters. So a parameter directory has to exist in your project, and then you can actually just pass in a param name. So this is the development. And this is training.
And then it's going to read the corresponding definitions that you have in the params file.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So now the bucket name for the training would actually be demo ACB training bucket and then demo ACB development bucket. And so we merge that to master, and the same thing would run, except it would deploy both to this purple account, which is my development account, and to my training account right here.
Okay. Where would we fit in unit tests and integration tests, something like that, in the pipeline?
That's a great question. So if you go back to, depending on what you're wanting to actually include, so in the source project, in the source CI project itself, I call the CI, again, if I could make some changes, probably would just be scripts, but you could create a directory here called unit tests or testing, and put all of your jobs in that directory. You would give them a stage, and whatever you want to do for your unit test could actually just be added there. And then you add them to or create an additional source pipeline file to include that in there. So for instance, this would look like, so we would add this here. We would include local, which is local to this repository, but it's not local to the source repository.
And there we would then have the corresponding actions that would then trigger the unit tests.
Correct. Yep. Okay. So, and then we would just say the stage name would be unit tests. And then whatever code is in this unit test thing would run in this set of stages. You could have multiple jobs. So what that does then, you would merge this to, you'd create a version reference, and you could update all previous pipelines to include new unit tests, or you draw a line in the sand saying, going forward, all new pipelines that reference the new version have those unit tests in them. So you can include, and then every project that leverages this GitLab CI would have those unit tests. Okay.
Cool. Yeah, so I asked that question because I've been talking to many other builders already, right? And the common thing that I've been seeing is for our corporate environments, we are really interested to cover all parts of product lifecycle, unit tests, integration tests, security scans, and all of that kind of stuff. But if we build something that is not for corporate, we tend to not do that thing, right? And that's why I was asking that. So integration tests would then go after the deployment to dev in your case, right?
Yeah, it absolutely could. And those are some advancements that over time I'd like to add to this. So getting a signal back from AWS that the stack actually completed successfully. That's in my status. That's in my status job right here. That's sort of under works. Just like, so there's a lot of flexibility here. If I could change a lot going forward, maybe this wouldn't be specific to CloudFormation. In this situation, I just want to deploy a CloudFormation stack that I know probably isn't going to change ever. These are staged resources, like we might add. So for instance, a service catalog portfolio might get a product added to it over time. Then we would add it, run through the pipeline. The pipeline would check to make sure the product template matched, had all the requirements. So One thing that I would add underneath the static code analysis, or even considered security, is a CloudFormation guard to validate that all my CloudFormation template met all the minimum requirements. So if there were service control policies in my environment that required certain things, resources weren't being deployed without compliance.
Yeah, cool. So thank you so much for sharing this and for showing this. So from a central management perspective, forcing the teams that internally that use this pipeline to stick to those steps that you have within the pipeline, or does this currently work?
Well, currently, from a management and governance standpoint, this is just how I deploy across 4 organizations resources that meet our particular static code analysis requirements. And over time, those jobs will be enhanced and added to. The teams themselves can use this process to do individual resource deployments. So entire CloudFormation stacks into their own environment. It's just not enforced at this time. A lot of our teams are actually doing this with Terraform. So the Terraform equivalent would be what they would use, and then they can add and modify different steps within the validate, format, plan, and apply process of Terraform. If they have other integration tests that they want to do, they're free to do that in their individual environments, dev, stage, prod, etc.
Cool. And in Terraform, you would then have modules that can be overwritten, but that can also enforce certain aspects of infrastructure components. Is that the way that you're using that?
Yeah, that would, exactly. That's definitely the way it's designed.
Okay, cool. Perfect. What else do you think would be valuable to know for the audience?
Well, I think, so this, again, this serves a specific use case, but it can be extrapolated out to anybody if they want to go and fork, clone, and use this to deploy resources. Again, this does just CloudFormation templates, but the project can be elaborated on to say, this app directory is going to go to the bucket that I deployed in a previous step, and it's going to be hosted behind CloudFormation for static website. So if you're a shop that punches out multiple static web apps in S3 buckets behind CloudFront, this would deliver and deploy those identically every time. You change your pipeline. For instance, you add a new feature or a CloudFront function to your CloudFront. You don't have to make multiple changes to your pipeline to do it. It'll just do one change and it'll push it out everywhere. So again, it's all about scalability and reliability and making sure your pipelines across multiple projects run the same.
Cool. Thank you so much. And this is open source as well, or available in?
Yeah, it's available. Like, I would love to see anybody want to use it, leverage it in the real world, play with it, add maybe pull requests against it for cool features. There's a lot that I like to change. I'd like to modify the local Gitlab or the local CI file to actually add additional stages right there. It kind of breaks the model of being a static and centrally managed pipeline, but the ability to add job variables from the local repository. So you could say, like, I want to skip this stage, or I want to add this stage in. So it definitely could evolve over time. And it's just hosted in one of my personal GitLab groups available for tinkering. So it's not proprietary in any way and can be looked at.
Cool. Then let's make sure that I can add the link to the show notes as well, so people can find that and can then potentially also approach you to get some more details. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, so I'm in the community builders, obviously, for those individuals in the audience. I'm also in the OG AWS Slack. So if you want to reach out directly and ask questions or have a conversation. And then also, I have and launched prior to reInvent last year, AWS management and governance newsletter called Unlimited Leave. So it's just unlimitedleave.com. You can subscribe to the newsletter and contact me there. And then I'm at Ross Wickmann on virtually any social platform.
Cool. Thank you so much. And then now that you're the second person that I talked to that is, the first person that is going to year 4, I believe. What do you expect from the next year in the Community Builders program?
Man, it's interesting to see the program evolve over time. It's been a great community to be part of. I love just having conversations, seeing how people are using things uniquely in their environment, and also have some polarizing conversations. So everybody enjoys deploying things and managing AWS their own way. So I suspect some really good deep conversation on services like you've mentioned, Code Catalyst and things like that. You're in that community. I'd like to see how this evolves with regards to management and governance. A lot of people in the community builders group focus on application specific workloads. I think more and more it's going to evolve into management at scale. I hope, at least that's where I get some benefits. So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next year or two.
Yeah, sounds really interesting. And thank you so much, Ross, for spending the time and walking us through the CI/CD pipeline that you have. Looking forward to any feedback that the audience gives us, right? And yeah, looking forward for more collaboration with you as well. If you have a question on Code Catalyst, hit me up, right? And we can chat about it and have detailed conversations, especially also how to enforce governance within Code Catalyst, which is going to be pretty tricky as well, I believe, as the service evolves. With that, we're recording this on a Friday, so I'm allowed to say happy weekend. And looking forward to get back to you soon and have further conversations. Thank you so much, Ross.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.